Good morning to our listeners here on Long Island. It's a pleasure to welcome you to another episode of Suffolk Matters, where Suffolk County meets Suffolk AME. Our guest this week is Peter Scully, Suffolk County Water Quality Czar. So I got to stop right there and say, Water Quality Czar. I'm assuming that's not your official title. It's just a nickname that you came across?
That is correct. My formal title is Deputy County Executive for Administration. I joined the Bologna administration in May of 2015 after having served as the regional director of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for 12 years. And the reason that the county executive calls me the Water Quality Czar is because he specifically recruited me away from DEC to oversee his water quality initiatives.
Sure, and these are big initiatives and something that you're clearly no stranger to. With the various titles, czar notwithstanding, being regional director over at the DEC, that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I must say that over the course of my career, I've been really fortunate to have opportunities to serve in a variety of positions in government in Suffolk County on both the town level. At both Brookhaven and Islip and in Suffolk County before going to DEC, and now having come back, it gives me a unique perspective, I think, on the water quality challenges that we're facing here.
Yeah, and all the right people, so to speak. Having worked with them and worked within the system, you're not just a guy with a good idea. You know how to get it done.
Well, I certainly hope so. It's true that I've met a lot of good people during the course of my career, and that I've established relationships that I think are helpful in trying to advance some of these important initiatives that the county executive holds as top priorities.
Yeah, and these, I think, specifically when we talk about, the county coastal resiliency initiative, that may be a priority for the administration, but I think Suffolk County, the residents, see that as a personal priority as well.
Well, I think that's absolutely true. During my tenure at DEC, there was a lot of concern on the part of both the environmental community and even the business community about continued deterioration in water quality in Suffolk County, and the primary concern being nitrogen from cesspools and septic systems. Sure. There had been a lot of impatience, people waiting for an elected leader who is willing to step up and confront that challenge. And the honest truth is, it wasn't until Steve Bologna took office as Suffolk County Executive in 2012 that an elected official arrived and said, "We're going to do something about this. I know that nobody's done anything about it for 40 years, but we're going to take this challenge on." And it's really the reason I came over to Suffolk County in May in 2015. The excitement of actually having somebody who's willing to put some political skin in the game to try and get things done.
Right. And that's, in a sense, it might seem like a bold move, but the fact of the matter is the time has come, There's always been some concern, I think, in the community in general, any public works project. You say, hey, listen, we're putting in a park. We're refurbishing this bridge. We're anything, any sort of initiative that might impact somebody's commute, and where they might have to look out their window for a day or two and see, a machine moving some dirt around or whatever, people kind of clench up. But I think you guys have had a really smart idea with the implementation on, some of the things that are coming up on a referendum ballot very soon to now. And to do this in a way with a system that is, let's call it modern, but, it has been around for quite some time, is tried and true across the country, and has been working effectively in Suffolk County, and to be able to do that install in a way that's minimally invasive.
Right. Well, to go back to where it starts, it all starts with Superstorm Sandy and the realization in the wake of Sandy that there's a tremendous amount of federal funding that was being made available for post-Sandy resiliency projects.
Right.
The governor and the county executive recognized that the argument could be made that nitrogen pollution from cesspools and septic systems was degrading water quality, degrading our wetlands, which protect the coast from storm surge, and that for that reason, the federal government should make an investment in sewer connections in the unsewered portions of Suffolk County to strengthen the coastal resiliency of Long Island. And as a result, we're now poised to make the largest investment in sewer infrastructure in Suffolk County in more than 40 years, with the construction cost to be funded entirely. Let me say that again,
Yeah.
entirely. And when I say entirely, I mean 100% construction funded through state and federal grant funding. We'll never see an opportunity like this again in our lifetimes.
That's amazing. And again, just going back to you saying how you've had the fortune of working with some good people to get things done throughout your career, and to have that all kind of come together now. And you use the term, you have the argument that we need to protect the wetlands, but to me, I think we saw the proof of that in Sandy. So in that regard, being able to get this thing done with the connections you have, the county executive's political will to get this done, and the connections he has. I mean, this is, I think, a beautiful opportunity, not just for the people who are going to get connected to the sewer, but for all of Suffolk County. One, because of the environmental impact and the economic impact, the positive stimulation that will provide. But it'll also maybe create a path forward for us to start looking at other areas that need this level of mitigation on nitrogen.
I think that the point you make is spot on. The fact that most of Suffolk County is unsewered has been identified as a major issue of concern, not only for our environment but for our economy.
Right.
Over the past few years, we've seen with increasing frequency situations where we have closed beaches, fish kills, discolored water in a community that relies on its water resources to support a $5 billion tourism economy.
Right.
And so addressing that in a meaningful way is a significant challenge for the region. This project could be the first of many if we're successful, and for that reason, it's a very important challenge is upcoming when we ask the public to give the thumbs up to these projects on January 22nd.
Absolutely. I see this as a beautiful time in a sense. Public works in general was designed in its inception in a down economy to put people to work, people that were underemployed or unemployed. And that shifts people around all over the place, not just the people that are going to go out and do the physical work, but it creates vacancies in other areas for people to move up. And that's that rising tide that lifts all boats, so to speak. So there's that positive there. But to have this referendum pass, get the job done well, and show the positive effects, I think that's going to really help people understand why, sewers need to happen, and they need to happen in greater areas in Suffolk County than just, the handful of spots. Now, again, very smart to start in these areas and get these projects going there, because I think you're going to get the best bang for your buck, so to speak. One, 100% funded. Two, it's going to do a lot to mitigate along those waterways runoff that goes into the bay, and restoring the bay is going to be good for tourism. I mean, there's so much we could talk about there. But I think the fact of the matter is this is going to be the beginning, and this is going to continue to grow, and it can be done. Again, because we have the right people in place that know how to get the job done, the political will to put that in front of the voters, and the voters seeing the common sense in this initiative and feeling the positive impact from it.
Right. I think that your observations are good ones. We've been doing extensive outreach in the several communities which actually will need to vote on January 22nd.
Right.
They involve 3 separate projects in river corridors along Suffolk County's South Shore. The Forge River in Mastic, the Forge River Watershed Sewer Project, will serve a community that has a river that's one of the most eutrophic and anoxic water bodies in all of North America. Right. 2 smaller projects, one in Islip that will serve the community of Great River near the Connecticut River, and then a larger project in the Carls River watershed in the town of Babylon. So we've been doing extensive outreach with these communities, going out, providing them with information, and answering questions that they may have, and we find that these communities get it. I mean, the people in these communities understand. They know the importance not only for themselves but for their children and their grandchildren, and for the quality of life in Suffolk County moving forward. The public gets this, and we think these projects will be strongly supported.
That really was my next question, because and again, a little bit about my history. Maybe our listeners don't, but I worked at Public Works, and I worked specifically as an assistant director in the sewer district areas. This was something that I dealt with when interfacing with communities when new sewer installs were going in for smaller projects. And I got a pretty strong sense that, if you were upset about the project, if a community member was upset about the project, it wasn't because the project was going on. It was because maybe they weren't connecting to it. Like everybody kind of wants to be on sewers. Some people, for reasons that don't matter to the environment. They want the sewer connection. They want to be done with the hassle of dealing with this cesspool and having it pumped, potentially collapse, any of the offending odors and all of that other stuff that goes along with it, and the convenience of knowing, listen, I have a pipe that's maintained by the government. I pay a simple fee, which is generally less than what it costs to pump your cesspool out once, and I'm good. But then there are other people who had more ambitious, personal but ambitious, reasons. They say, well, I have a house that's this size. I have a cesspool on the property. I wanted to extend out a little bit more, but I can't because there has to be a certain amount of my land dedicated to the cesspool. Now, when you remove the cesspool from the equation, they can make a connection to the sewer and have access to maybe a little bit more land to, put a small extension on,
That's a good point. I think that we know that in some of the South Shore communities where groundwater levels are high, some folks are forced to pump their cesspools 3 or 4 times a year, and I'm told that they cannot do laundry, and shower on the same day. They have to time these things,
Sure.
which is a real hardship.
Yeah.
And so a connection to a sewer facility is really a tremendous benefit to
Yeah.
folks who have that type of inconvenience. And of course, operating the sewer system, I just have to say, you talk about your work background. Our Department of Public Works does a magnificent job operating the sewer system. We get virtually no complaints, and we have a lot of public agencies that would prefer if we took over all the privately operated plants and operate those as
Absolutely.
well because of the quality of the work
Yep.
that the workforce does. We're very proud of them.
Yeah.
They've been integrally involved in trying to advance these projects to referendum as they balance their day-to-day responsibilities. They're doing a great job.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and maybe a little bit selfishly because, again, like we talked about your career and interfacing with good people and having those opportunities to work with and get things done with great people. That's my sense of working over there as well. I had a lot of great people that I work with on a daily basis that really got it and got it on a very high level, but were also able to translate it down to just any old person that walked in and had a question. So a lot of opportunity for positive momentum. I'm a little excited for the results on this referendum.
Yep, we're hopelessly optimistic, and based on our interactions with people in the community, feeling very positive. We continue to do community outreach. We'll have a series of community outreach meetings in the weeks leading up to the referendum, and we find that any legitimate question that's asked, we have a pretty sound answer for, and those usually very well received. Yeah. You indicated earlier in the broadcast that we'll be using a technology, it's low-pressure sewer technology, which is considered much more efficient, is much less disruptive to the community, is well vetted, has been used for 50 years in the United States, and the sophistication of the technology in recent years has just advanced significantly, such that if there are any problems with the system, the county would receive electronic signal from any malfunctioning component and be able to jump on that. We think it's a real move into the 21st century. We think it has great promise for other places in Suffolk County, and that the success of these projects is going to enable us to move forward and provide sewer connections to other communities in Suffolk County that have been waiting for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. And, let's go back to the early days of sewers in Suffolk County. And the technology at the time was such where you needed straight pipes connecting to, large, deep structures in the ground. Again, Long Island doesn't have a crazy high elevation. It's an island. So there was a lot of dewatering involved. A lot of soil had to be moved out of the ground to make way for these very large, very deep pipes. Expensive, time-consuming. This new system is smart because if it's buried below the frost line and done by a machine that sits on the surface and kind of pushes it under the ground, you're not ripping up an entire road.
Yeah, I
You
think
don't
that,
have 50 guys standing around, moving dirt in various directions and blocking traffic and everything else. You've got some small points where someone's going to have to flag you around a little machine that's smaller than a box truck, but you're not talking this major disruptive process.
right. It is analogous in certain ways to advances in medical surgery, right?
Absolutely.
Where, in years past, people would be subject to very, very invasive procedures.
Right.
And now we find that medical professionals are able to go in and do the same type of work with minimal,
A small cut,
Right.
a little microscopic camera, and not too different. Especially considering we talk about I know one of the treatment plants in Suffolk County has a 102-inch pipe that leads into the treatment plant 7 stories below groundwater. That is a massive. You've got a stage dewatering now because you can't draw that much water with one pump at one time. So you've got a lot of complicated things that are going to require a bunch of engineering and a lot of, maybe on-the-fly adjustments, whereas now you're talking about a group of people that can come in, they're union companies, that this is what they do. That's it. Their guys are trained to do this. They've been doing it for years. They've installed these systems successfully in Suffolk County. The oversight on putting them in, testing them, make sure that they're going to run right, has been done by the Department of Public Works time and time again. So this is a smoothly running machine, so to speak.
Yeah, we're looking forward to advancing these projects in a way that contrasts to what the communities in Islip and Babylon went through during the original installation of the Southwest Sewer District.
Right.
And one of the things that I did when I came over to the county was to research the history and look at past media accounts, and there was just tremendous disruption to the communities. People
Right.
suffered significant property damage. There was damage to vehicles. The amount of inconvenience
Right.
that people had to put up with during that construction is just very, very significant. Again, the surgery analogy is a good one.
Yeah.
This is a much more efficient way to proceed. We can simply move a pipe around utilities underground, not having to reroute things. We're really excited
You
about
can
this.
go above or below things if there's something in the way that was unanticipated. I can tell you, from personal experience, you may have a gravity sewer line, which is just a straight pipe at a consistent pitch between one structure to another, and halfway across that install, there's a pipe nobody knew about. Now what do? You have to redesign the whole project. You have to relocate something. There's all of these adjustments with this modern system. Duck under.
Yeah, that's correct. And so, this is in part a result of the fact that we're trying to install sewers in fully developed communities.
Right.
And as you just indicated, you never know for sure what you're going to confront underground until you get there. And it's very unfortunate when you have a completed engineering design, get into the field for the construction process, begin the trenching to begin the install, and suddenly you're confronted with a condition that wasn't reflected before the design.
Sure.
Needs to be dealt with on an engineering basis.
Right.
Decisions have to be made in the field. Costs go up.
Yep.
We can avoid a lot of that with this new technology.
No, it's great. And, again, this particular system, I think, is going to have a tremendous impact, especially the bang for the buck like we talked about, with the funding, 100% funded. But it may not be the right system for every neighborhood. So looking forward, there may be other areas that this system is perfect for, and there may be a desire to do that, and then there may be other areas where you're going to go with a gravity collection system, series of wet wells and pump stations to bring it to a treatment plant. But there are a lot of options. There are a lot of ways to get it done, and I think a lot of areas that really want sewers, because it's Long Island, sand is a natural resource here, and it's also very easy to sewer. I think things can get done, especially, someone like yourself that understands this process, the Department of Public Works understanding how to get it done on their end, and, people wanting it done.
Right. Again, your background gives you a perspective on these issues that other radio hosts might not have, obviously. But it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
The engineers in the Department of Public Works are quick to point out that there may still be circumstances under which a gravity sewer connection is preferable,
Right.
because of unique circumstances,
Right.
and that I should always keep that in mind.
Yep.
That we have to make decisions about individual projects as they're before us, and we're certainly going to do that. But before we made a decision to move forward to design these projects as low pressure, we went through a significant due diligence process.
Yep.
The cost effectiveness of the technology seemed obvious, but we wanted to make sure that we knew any potential downside. So I had the staff go and identify municipal systems elsewhere in the country where they had at least several thousand of these systems in the ground to make sure we knew what their experience was.
Right.
After getting through that due diligence process, we simply weighed the benefits and disadvantages and just said we can't really turn away from the economic benefit that would result from Suffolk County residents with going through this technology when we know it's going to be minimally disruptive to their quality of life at the same time. This is a win-win, and so we're anxious to move forward.
And again, the environmental impact as well, and it's something I talked. So Kevin McDonald joined us last week, and we talked a little bit about the environmental side of things, and it just kind of it drew my attention the idea that being able to fix the nitrogen problem in the Great South Bay and being able to address that significantly. That's going to have a positive effect on tourism. You talk about, beaches being closed or whatever else, and there will be some people that normally go to the Great South Bay that now tourism is up, and they say, you know what, this time of year we want to go to the North Shore, and that's economic stimulation there. Again, that rising tide that raises all boats. Just sticking with the water-themed analogy, it's all to my way of thinking. This is all good.
Right, and so there's also benefits for the business community. And in the case of the Forge River Watershed Sewer Project, one of the areas that will have access to sewer as a result is the Montauk Highway Corridor. It's a series of small businesses.
Right.
And while these projects and the grant funding won't benefit connections for those small businesses, we're working now on a special financial assistance program to make it more affordable for the small businesses to connect to the sewer district. The county executive always says if we can't make it affordable, it'll never work.
Right.
We're trying to make sure that the full economic and environmental benefit of these projects can be realized, and that when it comes to this referendum on January 22nd, that these projects are strongly supported in these communities. Sure. As you note, a lot of people get it. They support these projects. Yeah. We need them to come out on Tuesday and show that they support the projects at referendum.
That's very important, yes. And, again, the forethought to design these projects in such a way that they can be expanded, that's something I feel like I have to touch on also. To put a system in and say, okay, this is only going to benefit this area, and that's the only people that will ever benefit. That's limited in scope. But you guys were looking at this thing on a much higher level and designing this so that it could be something that benefits other people at other points in time. And it just takes a little figuring out on how that can get done. But the engineering work and the installation work will be there and ready to make that component, a reality for those businesses.
That's a really great point. Both in the case of the Forge River project and in the case of the Carls River and Connecticut projects, they are necessary next steps for expanding sewer. Even further. This project involves the first two phases of a four-phase project.
Right.
The communities that are not now included in this project are anxious to see their own communities sewered.
Yep.
We can't move forward with phases 3 and 4 if we don't move forward with phases 1 and 2 as part of this project.
Yep.
Similarly, in the South Shore in Islip, we have a project that's going to be voted on in Great River, and the people in the community immediately to the east in Oakdale are anxious to be sewered.
Sure.
We're anxious to get them sewered.
Absolutely.
But we need to get these sewer projects moving forward and in place first and then move on to the communities that are immediately adjacent. That's why these projects are such important stepping stones to a more solid and sustainable future in Suffolk County.
So for me, just another aspect of this whole thing, which you already touched on, is from my way of thinking, the way I look at the world, this is generally positive for everybody, not just the people in that neighborhood. But none of it will happen if the voters don't get out there and have their voices heard. I'm very encouraged by the number of people that come out to the informational meetings that have happened, which there have been a bunch. I'm encouraged by the fact that they have questions. I am additionally encouraged that, again, as you had alluded to, you guys had a series of answers that people were able to understand and digest. So things have been thought out. People care. They want to know. They come. They get the information. The assumption on my part is, when they leave those meetings, they're for the referendum. But if the impression is, listen, this is just a done deal and it's just going to happen and nobody shows up to vote, there isn't another swing at this. This is very important that, anyone in these areas that has the ability to cast this vote goes out and votes.
I think that's a very good point. As indicated earlier in the broadcast, we'll never have another situation like this where we get $400 million in sewer infrastructure funded entirely with grants.
Right.
Projects are defeated, we'll lose that opportunity forever.
Right. And that opportunity, as you've already said, begets additional opportunities. And I think this is something Suffolk County needs. I mean, I think all of Long Island needs it, but I think Suffolk County needs this for a number of reasons. We did focus quite a bit on the environment as it relates to nitrogen in the Great South Bay and in groundwater, but we also need to recharge our aquifers. And having some common sense sewer systems that are going to process waste, bring the nitrogen levels down to lower than the standard of drinking water, and dump that back down into the ground, that's what sewage treatment does. That's going to be very positive.
Yeah, the benefits are numerous. I think that it's going to be a great improvement to the quality of life here. It's going to make this a more sustainable community. As we've seen over the past few years, a continued degradation in water quality in our surface waters is an increasing concern.
Right.
We've seen, based on what happened in Florida earlier this year, just how bad things can get.
Yeah.
We can't continue to move in a direction where we're failing to acknowledge and address this issue, and that's why these projects are so crucially important.
Oh, yeah. And, bringing that back full circle, you say we can't let what happened in Florida happen here. We can prevent that. Again, the people that are needed in government, the people in elected office, they're all ready to go. The will is in the community. The engineering community knows what to do and how to get it done. Oversight on these installations, it's all there. This is a great moment in Suffolk County to be able to start getting back into doing some of these common sense things that are going to have a benefit across the board.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. It's a great time in history. 40 years of inaction on this issue has been replaced by strong action. We've made more progress in the last 4 years than we've made in the prior 40.
Yeah, no, I completely see it. So is there anything else? I know I've had, a series of questions and comments throughout, but I never really gave you an opportunity. Is there anything that you want to share with our listeners about this set of projects or, future initiatives all dealing with groundwater, potential sewers, or, just anything that's kind of on your plate that the world needs to know about?
Well, I just think people should appreciate that the underlying problem is the fact that much of Suffolk County was developed without the benefit of sewers, and now we're finding out after the fact just what a significant mistake that was.
Right.
We have an overall plan. The county executive has an overall plan to address it in the broader sense, both through sewering in areas where that makes sense and the use of individual systems where sewering doesn't make sense.
Right.
But when you have opportunities like the one that confronts us now, where you have $400 million of state and federal money essentially gifted to Suffolk County to put these projects in place, it's critically important right now that the public, which strongly supports the projects, shows that they support the projects, so we can get these projects moving and get on to the larger challenges that we face associated with water quality. The picture is much bigger than these projects, but these projects, in terms of our ability to get them done, the stars being aligned right now with funding in place, designs completed, the stars are aligned. It's time to get these projects done. That's why we're very interested in continuing to share information for the public, answer questions and concerns. There's a tremendous amount of information available on the county website about the projects, and we're just hopeful that interested members of the community who support cleaner water will show their support.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, I don't interface with a large number of people in those affected areas, but I have heard from a few. But where I hear from most are from areas that aren't under consideration right now, but could be positively affected, and they're strongly interested. So those people that have the ability to vote, you really should, because you're doing something good for yourself. You're doing something good for the environment. You're doing something good for your greater community, and you're doing something good for Suffolk County. So do find the time, run in. 15 minutes out of your day, with drive time, just get it done. So, all right. So our guest this morning was Peter Scully, currently working as a czar, a water quality czar, which is not his official title. It's just a little nickname we got going on for the Balone administration here in Suffolk County. and formerly Regional Director of New York State DEC, someone with great experience and knowledge on all of this stuff. And I really want to just thank you again for sharing with us something I know our listeners know I'm in big favor of it, but I'm glad that you were able to add an additional perspective to this to let everyone know. So.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be here, and we'll look forward to the results of the referendum.
Absolutely. So, and thanks again for our listeners for joining us on Suffolk Matters, and we will be back next week.